So let's look at notification. All right. And of course, some of us work with maintenance department and we are very familiar with what notification is. So notification is just basically a trigger. Okay. So if there is any sort of abnormality or a work request, there has to be some sort of trigger that will be able to inform the maintenance department that this particular issue has happened on this particular line or on this particular machine. Okay, so I'm going to give us an example. So let me say, for example, I have a truck and that particular truck delivers oil to a certain location. All right, and the truck is designed in such a way that every 4 hours, maybe the particular fuel in that truck gets finished. Okay, so if we don't have a notification to cause a trigger at every, let me say, every 2 hours. So if we don't have a notification to cause a trigger for every 2 hours for that oil to be changed, it means that we are manually going to be going to that machine every 2 hours to make sure that that oil is still in place. And of course, you know that it is going to impose a lot of stress on us. All right. So we have notifications. So what these notifications does is just to trigger. It is to inform. It is to notify a particular maintenance department that this issue has occurred. Okay. Or we have this work request that has to be given attention. All right. Also, we can also use these notifications to define our task, which will be used for reporting analysis. And I'm going to explain more on this in the next slide. So I think I put up a particular poll where I asked the question that apart from the SAP standard notification types, do we have other notification types? So normally in SAP, we have some standard notifications. Okay, these notifications are standard for SAP, and there are 3. We have the M1, we have M2, and also we have the M3. So these are standard notification types. But this does not mean that we don't have other notification types. All right. So when we are defining notification types, normally it is usually based on the business requirements. What is the requirement? The requirement for the business. All right. You could go to your workplace and open up your notification and check the types of notification you have, and you realize that you have more than 3 notification types. You could even find out that you might not even see this M3 notification type in your list. All right, and that is because your notification has been configured based on what your particular business that you work with want as a requirement. All right, so the notification type creation is not rigid. It is very flexible. All right, so we can be able to determine what type of notification we want to create based on what the business wants. All right, so let's see this. Now, under the standard notification types, we have the M1, we have the M2, and we have the M3, all right? So the M1 notification is the maintenance request, okay? And M2 notification is the breakdown request. And then the M3 notification is the activity report. Of course, you might even see that your system might have M2 as a maintenance request and M1 as a breakdown request. So if you see something like that on your SAP, not to worry, that is how your own SAP notification has been configured. All right, so let's go with this. I'm going to show us the next slide. So this is how it looks like. Now, if you look at this, we have series of notification types that have been configured for this particular system. So it is not necessarily that you would see these exact notification types when you open up your own notification. Okay, so you might see a different notification type, and this is based on what your business requires. All right, we're going to actually explain these notification types. We would explain the M1, the M2, and the M3. All right. So let me take, for instance, I work on the shop floor. I work with machines. I'm an operator. All right. So I have a particular line that I run. All right. And normally before I start up my line, of course, I have to do some cleanings and inspections. And during my inspection for my line, I realized that there is a particular valve on my line that is giving some sort of signal that is going to fail anytime soon. Okay, but me looking at it, it's something that my line can actually run with. All right, but I would have to raise a maintenance request. Now normally this maintenance request, they are normally raised between I don't know if I would say between two departments. So let me say notification could be raised by the operator, all right, to the maintenance team. So if the technicians are the ones that are going to be carrying out the maintenance, the operator would have to raise notification to the maintenance team. All right, so it could be to the planners, and then the planners then cascade the job execution to the technicians. All right, or you could raise notifications to another department seeking for external services. All right, so it is usually raised between two departments or between two operational aspects. All right, so we have between the operators to the technicians, or operators to the planners. All right, or you have from the technicians to an external service that is needed. Okay, so if I find out that I have that particular faulty valve, all right, so what I am going to do is to raise a notification. Now, why do I raise a notification? I will have to raise a notification because I have seen an abnormality. Okay, I've seen an abnormality on the line, and I need to raise a sort of request to the maintenance team for them to be able to plan this job. But of course, when I'm raising these notifications, there are several questions that I'm going to ask myself. And one of the questions I'm going to ask myself as an operator is this a kind of issue that could be fixed? Of course, we have some abnormalities on lines that could require quick fixes. All right. Now, is this a type of failure that could be fixed on the line at that particular moment, right? Or does this kind of failure require some sort of planning? So planning which could entail labor, all right, or components. You could have some sort of failure that you might need to replace that particular component. So these are the questions that you ask yourself when you want to create the notification as an operator, or possibly as a technician that maybe needs an external service. All right. Now, if I ask myself this question as an operator, all right, that do I need to change this part? No, I don't need to change this part. All right. Do I need any form of labor to plan this? No, I don't need it. Then I have to raise my notification. Now, what type of notification do I raise? In that kind of situation, I could just raise an M1 notification. All right. So when I raise my M1 notification, which is my maintenance request, I could then fix a particular issue and then close my notification. Now, if that issue is a breakdown request, all right, so we have a particular breakdown that maybe needs an intervention. And of course, we know what the breakdown is. If I have the line idle and that particular line is causing a disruption in production activities, then it is a breakdown. All right. So if we have such a particular issue, you would have to go ahead in creating an M2 notification. So if it is not a breakdown, I would create an M1 notification. If it's a breakdown, then I create an M2 notification. Now, like I said before, this varies per your business requirement. Your particular notification could have M1 as a breakdown request, all right? and M2 as a maintenance request. So it is based on how the configuration is done. So if you have such a setting, you don't need to be confused. It is based on the type of requirements that is needed by your business. All right. Now, if that particular maintenance request would need planning, it would then be sent to the maintenance team. The maintenance team would further convert that particular notification to a work order. Now, why are they converting that particular notification to a work order? Because right now we are going to be planning resources like labor, and then we have components. Maybe you have components that have failed. So at that particular instance, we are planning. So when it comes to the work order is talking about the job execution, all right? And then the notification is the job request. So you are raising notifications to request for maintenance, and then these notifications are being communicated to the maintenance team, and then the maintenance team plans the execution by converting those notifications to a work order. All right. Now, I'm going to show us the interface between the two. Now, this is how the notification interface is. Okay. And if you look at the notification interface here, you can see that there is no provision for planning for materials. There is no provision for planning for components. All right. There is no provision for planning for either you are going to be using a WBS account. There is no provision like that here. All right. The only provision that is given here in the notification is the code. And these codes would help you to properly describe that issue. Okay. So if there was a damage, what particular part did that damage occur? All right. What is the cause of that damage? Okay, so this particular aspect would help you to properly explain that issue that you are having. All right, so you can see that it doesn't have any planning details. Okay, so it simply means that if I go to my line and I see an abnormality, and I know that that abnormality just needs a quick fix, I could just raise a notification and then fix that particular issue immediately and close my notification. All right. But if that particular issue that I find out on the line would need some sort of spare parts replacement and then labor planning, all right, then I would have to, as an operator, I would have to communicate that notification number that have been raised to the maintenance team for proper planning. So I'm going to show us the interface for the work orders. Now, this is the interface for the work order. Now, you can see that it has additional fields that the notification does not have. All right. So simply means that there is no planning that can be done on this notification. All right. Notification just helps to give some sort of report. Okay. But the planning for the job execution cannot be done on the notification. Hence, they need to always convert your notifications to work orders. We have instances where we see individuals that some technicians, engineers, we have notifications are always left unconverted on the system. Right. So when we have situations like that, you cannot clearly tell why the notification was created. But when you have notification that was converted to a work order, maybe during audit or during reporting, we can be able to see that, okay, this particular issue happened on this line and the notification was converted to a work order because planning had to be done, spare parts had to be replaced, labor had to be planned, okay? Or this particular notification was closed because the issue that was encountered was a quick fix or something that could just be fixed and then notification closed. Okay, so when we look at the interface for the work order, we can see that there is provision for components. All right, So if you have to change your components, and then we see that there is provision for the cost, okay, and also we can also see, okay, this is the interface for the components, and then we can also see that there is provision for the location. All right, so if there is a particular account that cost will be being incurred to, it is recorded here. Now these are fields that we cannot find here on the notification. All right, so now we can now be able to understand when to create an M1 notification and when to create an M2 notification. So when you have an M1 notification, when you have a maintenance request, you create them. And when you have an M2, when you have a breakdown, you create your M2 notification. So both the M1 and the M2 notification, if there have to be some sort of planning for that job, then you go ahead to communicate the notification to the maintenance department to convert that particular notification to a work order. Because of course, at that particular period, you are going to be needing planning. All right, maybe you have spare parts that needs replacement, so you can only do this when you have converted the notification to a work order. Now, M3 notifications. What are M3 notifications? If we have jobs that have to be done on the equipment, and there are some sort of activities that need to be done on that equipment, like maybe you have to change the oil, change the oil of a pump, replace the seals for the pump. These are the activities. So what the M3 notification does is to help with the reports for this activity. All right. Now, at a certain time when you check your SAP system at work, you could realize that you won't see these M3 notifications in the list of a notification. All right. Now, during configurations for notification, there is an opportunity for you to configure the system in such a way that when you create a work order, you have an automatic generation for a notification. Now, I don't know if we've experienced this type of situation where when we create a work order, either a PM02, all right, you realize that there is always an automatic notification that is generated to it. There is always a notification attached to that particular work order. So if we are going to be having such a configuration, then there would obviously not be a need to have an M3 notification. So if you don't have an M3 notification in part of the notification list, obviously you have some of your work orders automatically assigned to notifications. And there are reasons why sometimes you might want to assign, during configurations, you might want to assign your notifications to your work orders. So if you check your particular system, SAP system, all right, and you can't find your M3 notification, which is your activity reports, then you would just know that your work orders already have automatic assignment with notifications. And why do we normally have this? It actually helps us to sort of streamline our work orders. All right, so when we have our notifications automatically linking to the work order, it would enable anybody or maybe any maintenance team to properly understand that particular issue that is going on. All right, so if I have a PM 02, okay, and then I have an automatic assignment with a notification, it would help me to really understand the issue at hand. Like I said, when we look at the notification fields, you have your codes, all right, and this code would help you to properly explain what that particular issue is. All right, so if you have this notification linked to the work order, it would help you to properly streamline your workflow. And also it helps with historical data. All right, so the more of these work orders that you raise with automatic automatic notification generations, all right, we are able to have access to historical data. And of course, these historical data, they are very important, because if we have to start analyzing the performance of each of the machines on the lines, okay, so these historical data are also very, very important. And many other reasons why we have automatic creations of notifications when we raise our work order. So there might obviously not be a need for these M3 notifications, all right. So now we have been able to understand when to create the M1 notification, when to create the M2 notification, and when to create the M3 notification. So we're going to recap again. When you have a maintenance request, possibly an abnormality that you have seen, an impending breakdown, all right, you've seen that particular issue, but it's not a breakdown yet, you could raise an M1 notification based on what your system has already called it, based on the business requirement. Okay, so you could raise the M1 notification. All right, now if you have a breakdown, I'm an operator and I'm running a line, all right, and I have a particular breakdown on my line, the type of notification that I would raise to the maintenance department will be the M2 notification, which is the breakdown request. Okay, now whether or not the notification will be converted to a work order would then depend if there would be a planning for that particular job or not. All right, so if there's going to be some sort of planning, either for equipment, either for components or labor, all right, then you might have to convert, the maintenance team might have to convert the notifications to work orders, and after the job have been executed, the work order would then have to be closed. Okay, so I hope we are able to understand these notification types. To create each of these types of notifications.